We are the People's Channel.
Cross, Robbie, oh, he met it so well. And Whitmore! Theodore Whitmore. Absent without leave, this is Whitmore. Paul and Gale both available, it's still Whitmore. And it's now 2-0.
Blessings football from the Massive, and welcome once more as we formally enter the World Cup qualifying season. The first match of the campaign saw the Reggae Boyz falling to CONCACAF powerhouse Mexico by 2-1 at the Azetca Stadium. Jamaica's goal was courtesy of a brilliant strike from Shamar Nicholson, while Mexico got on the scoresheet through Alexis Vega and Henry Martin. There was a rather tumultuous build-up to the game, largely due to the refusal of English Premier League clubs and Championship clubs to release players for travel to Mexico, a country on England's COVID-19 restricted list. As such, Coach Theodore Whitmore had limited options at his disposal for the encounter. The team was led by Captain Andre Blake in goal, with Damion Low and Adrian Marapa performing central defensive duties, flanked by Major League Soccer duo Shamar Taxi Lawrence and Alvis Powell. Devon Speedy Williams and UK-based debutant Anthony Grant of Swindon Town anchored the midfield. Ahead of the two was Premario Williams, with Corey Burke and Norman Campbell on the flanks, while Shamar Nicholson led the forward line. The first half was scoreless and primarily one-way traffic. Jamaica defended deep in their own half, attempting to restrict the Mexican space as they got closer to the 18-yard box. The Mexicans were primarily limited to half chances, with Superman Andre Blake taking care of the rest. In possession, the boys struggled to string passes together, but created the occasional moment of danger, particularly on the left flank. Mexico was first to strike in the second half, with Alexis Vega scoring in the 50th minute. Jamaica equalized 15 minutes later through Shamar Nicholson. The boys held out for the remainder of the game until the 89th minute, where Henry Martin was able to blast a shot off the fingertips of Andre Blake and into the goal. We saw a wide range of performances from the players, with some stepping up and some not looking up to the task at hand. Andre Blake's world-class reflexes were on full display as he frustrated the Mexicans and prevented the scoreline from being much wider. A number of his saves were routine by his standards, but would be outstanding for most others. There was one nervous moment where Blake dropped a catch, but he made up for it by getting back the ball and making a series of outstanding saves thereafter. Blake almost prevented the winning goal from scoring, but unfortunately was just short of making another brilliant stop. Blake gets a score of 8. Damion Low wasn't quite up to his lofty standards, but put in a lot of work on the night, challenging the Mexican attackers at a number of critical moments. It was clear that the Mexican attackers sensed his presence. Low had one horrendous turnover early in the game, and was up and down in possession otherwise. He scores a 7. Low's partner in central defense and team veteran Adrian Marapa was solid on the night, bringing back memories of his Azteca performance in 2013. Marapa was usually in the right place at the right time to clean up a number of dangerous situations. He looked very composed both in defense and in possession. There were a few occasions where he was out of position, but for the most part, Marapa didn't look like someone who was without a club. He scores a 7. Shamar Taxi Lawrence had the best game we've seen from him in a while. He looked sharp going forward and defensively sound. Unlike the right side of the field, Lawrence and Norman Campbell, and subsequently Junior Fleming, seemed to be on the same page. In the second half, Lawrence's performance dipped slightly with a couple of unforced errors, and he was a bit late in closing down his opponents. Lawrence, the free kick taker on the night, could have been a bit more efficient with his kicks. He gets a score of 7. Alvis Powell was underwhelming on the night. In the first half, he was inadequately supported by his right winger, as Mexico pushed multiple players on the flank, oftentimes leaving Powell in no man's land. In the second half, Powell made numerous unforced errors in possession and in defense, enabling Mexico to put a lot of pressure on the Jamaican goal. He generally struggled once the Mexicans ran at him, and he was always a half second too slow in his reaction time, making it too easy for players to get off shots, including on the 2 goals. Powell gets a score of 4. Devon Speedy Williams was solid on the night, covering a lot of ground during the game. As usual, he was solid in possession and accurate with his passes. He also intercepted a number of Mexican attacks on the night, and in one case prevented another goal. Williams and fellow midfielder Grant occasionally connected, but for the most part, Williams' teammates didn't support him when he was in possession, apart from a brief spell in the second half. He scores a 7. The game saw Anthony Grant of Swindon Town making his debut. The English-based midfielder had a fairly good game, as he made a number of timely tackles in midfield and was very accurate with his passing. 2 things to keep an eye on though going forward are his tracking of players when they're making short snappy passes and his possession under pressure. There were a couple of occasions where he was bailed out by the ref. It was a good debut for the recent squad addition, and he helped his case for another start in the future. Grant gets a 7. Premario Williams was a surprise inclusion in the starting 11. Unfortunately, Williams did not reward Coach Whitmore for the selection. Williams provided good defensive support as the team primarily defended in the first half. However, he struggled in possession as his touch let him down on numerous occasions. Though he won a number of headers, for the most part they went straight to the opposition. The team looked much better in possession when Javon East entered the fray in place of Williams. Williams gets a score of 4. Norman Campbell had a rough night, sprinkled with a few moments of promise. On a couple of occasions in the first half, Campbell's pace and creativity led to some dangerous opportunities. There were a few moments where he and Shamar Nicholson combined, causing Mexico to look vulnerable. However, more often than not, Campbell's final ball let him down. On the defensive side, Campbell offered good coverage in the first half, enabling the left side to be more in sync defensively than the right. He gets a score of 5. Burke had a very scrappy performance on the night. Like most of the attacking players, he was starved of service, and he wasn't particularly efficient in possession. In the first half, Burke was out of position quite a bit on the defensive end, repeatedly exposing Alvas Powell. He eventually corrected the issue, but even so, he and Powell struggled to close down the Mexican attackers. To be fair to Burke, he isn't a winger, so it's no surprise that his performance was a level below those of the World Cup, where he played as a centre forward. Burke gets a 5. Shamar Nicholson continued his rich vein of form over the past week, scoring Jamaica's goal on the night. Nicholson gave the Mexican team problems from very early in the game. Despite not being the cleanest in possession, Nicholson was one of the few players who looked like an actual threat in possession. The Mexicans clearly recognized the danger and started to use any means they could to put him off his game, including a few elbows and cheap fouls. In the second half, Boza scored an outstanding goal, rewarding Coach Whitmore for keeping the faith with the much criticized forward. He gets a score of 8. Junior Fleming entered the fray and took over duties from Norman Campbell on the left wing. There was an immediate uptick in the tempo as he combined well with fellow substitute Javon East. As usual, Flemings worked hard on the defensive end, tracking the Mexicans up and down the flank. He had a couple dangerous direct attacks on goal, but ultimately didn't have enough time to truly threaten the Mexican goal. He gets a score of 6. Like Junior Flemings, Javon East provided a lift to the team and probably should have been on the field longer. He looked much more comfortable in possession than most of his teammates. He showed well for the ball and was good at holding the ball under pressure or dribbling to create a passing lane. While he may not be in contention for a place in the Panama game, given the availability of English Premier League and Championship players, he certainly didn't do himself any harm in staking a claim for a spot in the game against Costa Rica, where he plays his club football. He gets a score of 6. O'Neill Fisher entered the right side of the field and provided good defensive support to Alvas Powell when the team looked vulnerable. He was okay in possession, but struggled when pressed. He was later moved into the middle of the field in the dying moments of the game, with Julian Brown taking the right wing position. Fisher gets a 5. Peter Lee Vassell had a very brief cameo. Unfortunately, it coincided with the winning goal being scored. He didn't have enough time to make much of an impact on the game. He gets a 5. Like Vassell, Julian Brown came on for a brief cameo as well on the right side and didn't make much of an impression. He gets a 5. The team will feel quite disappointed, dropping a potential away point at such a late stage in the game. However, taking a step back, the team remains firmly in contention in the qualifiers. The next task at hand is a game against Panama, who the Reggae Boyz will face in the National Stadium on September 5th. Given that all the other first-round games ended in draws, a win against Panama will go a long way towards qualification. Jamaica should be boosted by the addition of a number of UK-based players who were unavailable for the Mexico game, including English Premier League striker Michael Antonio. Given the options available to the team and the strength of the Panamanians, we expect an exciting encounter, one where Jamaica certainly has the ammunition required to take all 3 points. Respect for watching the review, and we'll talk to you next time. Blessings to all.
Cross, Robbie! Oh, he met it so well. And Whitmore! leave. This is Whitmore. Hall and Gale both available. It's still Whitmore, and it's now 2-0.